The distress beacon had been transmitting for over 300 years, a desperate plea from a dying civilization, cast into the endless void of space like a message in a bottle. The Varelians never expected an answer. Their world was crumbling, their atmosphere deteriorating as their binary suns began to expand. They had exhausted every technological solution their brilliant minds could conceive. The transmission was their final act, a cosmic eulogy sent with their last reserves of power. They never imagined anyone would hear it, let alone respond. Our story begins not on their distant world, but on Earth, at the Allen Telescope Array in Northern California. It was an ordinary Tuesday when Dr. Chen noticed the anomaly in the data, a perfectly structured sequence of pulses cutting through the cosmic background noise, like a lighthouse beam through fog. At first, she thought it was equipment malfunction. Then she considered it might be interference from one of our own satellites. But as the pattern repeated hour after hour, its mathematical precision undeniable, the truth became impossible to ignore. We were receiving a message from the stars. It's not random, she whispered to her colleague that night as they pored over the data. These are words. They're crying out for help. The global response was unprecedented. Within days, every major space agency on Earth pooled their resources. Private aerospace companies redirected their missions. Nations that had been enemies for generations found common ground in this singular purpose. For the first time in human history, our species moved as one. While governments debated and scientists calculated, engineers worked tirelessly to retrofit our most advanced spacecraft. The journey would take decades, even with our newest propulsion systems. Many of the people who started the project wouldn't live to see its completion. But something profound had awakened in humanity, a calling that transcended individual lifespans. The Varelians had given up hope. Their once magnificent cities lay abandoned. Their population retreated underground into vast shelter complexes where they prepared for the inevitable end. Their historians documented their achievements for no one to read. Their artists created final masterpieces that would never be appreciated. They had accepted their fate with the quiet dignity that had defined their species for millennia. Then our signal reached them. We heard you. We're coming. 5 simple words that changed everything. When our ships finally arrived at their dying world, the crew expected to find ruins, perhaps some records of the civilization that had once flourished there. Instead, they found survivors. Emaciated, struggling, but alive. Against all odds, they had endured, sustained by nothing but the hope our message had given them. As the first humans stepped onto Varelian soil, their leader approached, his translucent skin revealing a weakly pulsing circulatory system. His voice, translated through our computers, carried a question that would forever change humanity's understanding of our place in the cosmos. Why? He asked, his large eyes reflecting starlight. Of all the species in the galaxy who received our cry for help, why were humans the only ones who came? The captain of the Earth vessel, Commander Reyes, stepped forward. At 53 years old, she had given up the chance to see her grandchildren grow up to lead this mission. The weight of humanity's first contact with another intelligent species rested on her shoulders. Because that's what we do, she answered simply. On our world, when someone cries for help, we respond. But the Varelian leader wasn't satisfied with this answer. He gestured toward the sky with a trembling limb. There are 17 spacefaring civilizations within reception range of our distress signal. We detected their communications, their ships. They heard us. They chose to ignore us. The human crew exchanged glances. Earth's scientists had long theorized about the Great Silence, the puzzling absence of contact from other intelligent life, despite the mathematical probability of its abundance. Never had they imagined that the silence wasn't due to absence, but to deliberate indifference. Over the following days, as the human rescue team established a base and began distributing supplies, they learned more about the Varelians. Once masters of stellar engineering, they had built a thriving civilization across their solar system. They had art, music, philosophy that rivaled humanity's greatest achievements. Yet despite their technological prowess, they couldn't solve the problem of their expanding suns. "We thought perhaps it was a test," explained the Varelian scientist who called herself the Keeper of Knowledge. Her specialized translator rendered her complex vocal patterns into English with an almost musical quality. Many advanced species believe that developing civilizations must overcome extinction-level events on their own to prove their worthiness. Dr. Patel, the xenobiologist, shook his head. "That's not our way. We've faced our own near extinctions, climate disasters, pandemics, nuclear threats. Each time we survived by working together, not alone." The rescue mission had brought terraforming technology, atmospheric stabilizers, and most critically, the blueprint for solar shields that could be positioned to block the worst of the binary star's radiation. It wasn't a permanent solution, but it would buy time, decades, perhaps centuries. As the humans worked alongside the Varelians, something unexpected happened. The aliens began to share their knowledge. Star charts mapping regions of space humanity had only dreamed of exploring, mathematical principles that could revolutionize our understanding of physics, and most intriguingly, detailed records of those other 17 spacefaring civilizations. "They monitor us," the Keeper explained one evening as she unfolded a holographic display showing a vast network of observation posts throughout the galaxy. "They study, they document, but they never intervene. It is their protocol, the prime directive of isolation." Commander Reyes studied the display with growing concern. "Are they hostile?" "No," replied the Keeper. "They are calculating. They believe emotional attachment leads to irrational decisions. They see your compassion as your greatest weakness." That night, as the Earth team gathered in their temporary quarters, Communications Officer Liu delivered troubling news. "I've detected unusual energy signatures at the edge of this system. Something big is coming this way." The Keeper burst into their meeting, her translucent skin pulsing with alarm patterns. "You must leave immediately," she insisted. "They're coming. The Watchers have broken their own protocol. They've never done this before." "We're not going anywhere," Commander Reyes stated firmly. "We didn't travel 26 light-years to abandon you at the first sign of trouble." The Keeper's large eyes dilated in what they had learned was an expression of fear. "You don't understand. They're not coming to observe anymore. They're coming because you've done the unthinkable." "And what's that?" asked Dr. Patel. "You've proven them wrong, and now they must decide what to do about humanity." The silence in the room was broken by the soft hum of the holographic display as it projected the approaching vessels, 17 of them, each representing one of the spacefaring civilizations the Keeper had mentioned. They were massive, dwarfing the Earth ship like whales beside a rowboat. "We have less than 6 hours before they enter orbit," Officer Liu reported, her fingers dancing across the sensor controls. "Their technology. It's like nothing in our databases." Commander Reyes paced the room, her mind racing through options. Running wasn't possible. The Earth vessel couldn't outpace these advanced ships. Fighting was equally futile. That left only one option: diplomacy. It was time to find out what humanity had stumbled into. "Keeper," she said, turning to the Varelian, "we need to understand exactly what we're dealing with. Who are these Watchers? What drives them?" The Keeper dimmed the lights in the room, a Varelian gesture of deep solemnity. "The Watchers are not a single species, but a collective of the oldest civilizations in our galactic neighborhood. They emerged from their own evolutionary crucibles millions of years before your ancestors descended from trees." She continued, projecting images of strange worlds and even stranger beings. "They developed a philosophy based on observation without interference. They believe that intervention corrupts natural development. They watch species rise, struggle, and often perish. Only those who survive independently are deemed worthy of eventual recognition." Dr. Patel leaned forward. "You mean they've let entire civilizations die when they could have helped? That's monstrous. Their perspective spans millions of years, the keeper replied. They view species as you might view cells in a body, individual units meant to function according to cosmic principles. Your arrival has disrupted their fundamental understanding of how intelligent species should behave. Meanwhile, on the other side of the temporary settlement, Engineer Takahashi was working with a group of Varalian technicians to accelerate the deployment of the solar shields. If the worst happened, at least they could leave this protection in place. Your people risk everything for strangers, said a young Varalian assistant, her voice translator still struggling with emotional inflections. We wouldn't exist anymore without you. Why would your species do this? Takahashi paused from his calculations. Where I come from, there's an old story about a terrible storm that washed thousands of starfish onto a beach. They were dying in the sun. A child began throwing them back, one by one. When told it was pointless, that he couldn't save them all, the child threw another starfish into the water and said, I saved that one. That's humanity at its best. As the deadline approached, Commander Reyes made her decision. She ordered most of the crew to remain with the Varalians to continue the rescue work. She would take a small team in their shuttle to meet the approaching fleet. This is suicide, Officer Liu protested. At least let me send out continuous transmissions explaining our intentions. No, the commander replied. We know they monitor communications. They've heard enough of our words. Now they need to see our actions. The keeper approached Reyes before she boarded the shuttle. There is something you should know, she said, her voice lower than usual. Legends speak of others who once acted as you have. Other compassionate species who attempted intervention. The Watchers. They're not in our historical records anymore. The implication hung in the air between them. The shuttle launched, carrying Commander Reyes, Dr. Patel, and 2 volunteers toward the imposing fleet. As they approached, their communication system activated without their input. A voice, or rather, multiple voices speaking in perfect unison, filled the cabin. Humans of Earth, you have violated the natural order. You have interfered where observation was the mandate. You have altered the course of evolution. Reyes took a deep breath. We've saved lives that would have been needlessly lost. If that's violation, then yes, we're guilty. There was a pause that stretched for what felt like eternity. For 4 billion years, we have watched species rise and fall. For 2 million years, we have maintained the protocol of observation. In all that time, only 7 species have chosen as you have chosen. The shuttle's sensors detected energy buildups across the alien fleet, weapons systems activating. Transportation technology, it was impossible to tell. What happened to those 7 species? Dr. Patel asked, though he suspected he already knew the answer. The unified voice replied with chilling simplicity. They were given a choice, the same choice we now present to you. The shuttle suddenly lost power, drifting in space before the towering alien vessels. Through the viewport, Commander Reyes watched as a blinding light enveloped them, and the shuttle began moving, not toward the fleet, but into it, pulled toward what appeared to be a massive opening in the central ship. What choice? Reyes demanded, fighting to keep her voice steady. What are you offering? The response came not as words, but as visions flooding their minds, glimpses of technologies beyond human comprehension, worlds reshaped according to will. And something else, something devastating that made Reyes gasp. Choose, said the voices. Join us and accept the truth of the cosmos, or return to your compassion and face the consequences that the other 7 faced before you. The visions flooding Commander Reyes' mind were overwhelming. Civilizations rising and falling across billions of years, species evolving and going extinct, all under the watchful eyes of the Watchers. She saw planets terraformed in days, stars harnessed for energy, and life forms engineered to perfection. But beneath this display of godlike power, she glimpsed something else. An emptiness, a void where something essential had been sacrificed. You offer us power, she said, finding her voice despite the mental onslaught. But at what cost? The unified voices responded with cold precision. Understanding. True understanding requires detachment. Your emotional connections cloud judgment. Your compassion is inefficient. 7 species before you recognize this truth. Eventually, Dr. Patel gripped the edge of his console, fighting against the intrusive visions. And the consequence for refusing? He managed to ask. The answer came not in words but in another vision. Planets quarantined, civilizations redirected, memories erased. The Watchers didn't destroy those who refused. They simply removed them from the equation, made them irrelevant. Back at the Varalian settlement, Officer Liu paced nervously as communications with the shuttle went dark. The crew worked frantically to maintain contact, but something was blocking all signals. "We can't just sit here," she said to Engineer Takahashi. "There must be something we can do." Takahashi looked up from the solar shield controls he was installing. "Maybe there is. The Varalians have been sharing their technology with us. What if we could adapt their old planetary defense systems?" Liu's eyes widened. To attack the Watchers. That would be. Not to attack, Takahashi interrupted. To communicate. On a scale they can't ignore. As they worked with the Varalian engineers to repurpose the ancient defense array, the Keeper approached them with an ancient data crystal. "There is something you should see," she said, her voice trembling. "Historical records we thought lost, about the 7 species the Watchers mentioned." The holographic display flickered to life, showing diverse beings from across the galaxy. Each had responded to distress calls. Each had intervened where the Watchers forbade intervention. And each had faced the same choice now presented to humanity. 4 joined the Watchers, the Keeper explained. They exist now only as part of the collective consciousness you are facing. The other 3 refused. What happened to them? Liu asked, dreading the answer. They were forgotten, erased from galactic memory. Their home systems encased in spatial distortions that no signals can penetrate. They continue to exist, but in isolation, removed from the cosmic community. Takahashi's hand stilled on the controls. So that's the choice. Power and knowledge, but lose our humanity, or keep who we are but be cut off from everything out here. Inside the massive Watcher vessel, Commander Rice and Dr. Patel were brought to a chamber unlike anything humans had ever constructed, a vast spherical space where representatives from each of the 17 civilizations appeared as projections of energy and light. "You will have 12 of your Earth hours to decide," the unified voices announced. "During this time, observe what awaits should you choose to ascend." The chamber transformed around them, showing glimpses of possible futures. Earth transformed into a paradise, disease eliminated, human potential unlocked beyond imagination. But in these visions, Rice noticed something disturbing. The humans had changed. Their eyes held the same detached observation she saw in the Watchers. Children played without laughter. Scientists worked without passion. Artists created without emotion. "This isn't advancement," Rice whispered to Patel. "It's surrender." The doctor nodded grimly. "They're not asking us to join them. They're asking us to become them." Meanwhile, Liu and Takahashi had completed their modifications to the Varalian array. With help from the increasingly hopeful Varalians, they aimed the massive communication device toward the Watcher fleet. "What exactly are we sending?" a Varalian technician asked. Liu smiled faintly. "Everything. Our music, our art, our literature, our greatest triumphs and our darkest moments, our wars and our peace treaties, our love stories, our myths, everything that makes us human." "Do you think it will change anything?" the Keeper asked. "I don't know," Liu admitted. "But if they're going to judge humanity, they should at least understand what they're judging." The array powered up, sending an electromagnetic pulse containing compressed data from Earth's cultural and historical archives, a testament to humanity's complexity, contradiction, and compassion. Aboard the Watcher vessel, Commander Rice felt a shift in the atmosphere. The projections flickered momentarily, their unified consciousness disturbed by something unexpected. What have your people done? The voices demanded, suddenly discordant rather than unified. Before Reyes could respond, the chamber's displays changed, bombarded by images from human history, moments of breathtaking kindness alongside terrible cruelty, scientific achievement alongside destructive folly, and through it all, an unrelenting drive to improve, to connect, to understand. Your transmission is irrelevant, the voices stated, though Reyes detected something new in their tone. Uncertainty, perhaps, or curiosity. I don't think so, she replied. I think you're seeing something you haven't witnessed in millions of years, something you've forgotten. The chamber erupted in conflicting projections as disagreements spread through the Watcher collective. Some seemed transfixed by the transmission, others disturbed, others dismissive. For the first time in eons, the Watchers were not of one mind. And then, without warning, a new presence entered the chamber, a being different from the others, its energy signature distinct, ancient beyond measure. Enough, it said, its voice somehow more real than the others. The choice remains, but the terms have changed. The being approached Reyes, studying her with what felt like genuine curiosity. Your species intrigues us. You act against self-interest. You risk extinction to save others. You choose empathy when calculation would dictate abandonment. That's what makes us human, Reyes said simply. Perhaps, the ancient being replied, or perhaps it makes you dangerous in ways we had not anticipated. Your 12 hours are rescinded. You will choose now. The chamber fell silent as all attention focused on Reyes. In that moment, she realized that this wasn't just a choice for her or even for Earth. It was a choice that would echo across the galaxy, potentially forever. Before I decide, Reyes said, her voice steady despite the pressure bearing down on her, tell me one thing. In all your billions of years of watching, has your way, your detachment, your non-intervention, ever brought you happiness? The question hung in the vast chamber, unanswered. And in that silence, Reyes heard everything she needed to know. The silence stretched within the chamber until it was broken by a sound Commander Reyes never expected to hear from an ancient cosmic entity. Laughter, not cruel or mocking, but a sound of genuine surprise, perhaps even revelation. Happiness, the ancient being finally said. In billions of years, no species has asked us about happiness. The projections around the chamber shifted, showing civilizations that had risen and fallen, technological marvels beyond imagination, and scientific understanding that approached the fundamental nature of reality itself. We achieved perfection, the entity continued. We eliminated suffering, disease, conflict. We mastered the physical laws of the universe. But at what cost? Reyes pressed. Everything, came the simple reply. The chamber filled with new images, the Varelians embracing the human rescue team, Engineer Takahashi telling his starfish story, Dr. Patil working alongside alien scientists to solve problems together. Ordinary moments of connection, of shared purpose, of meaning found in helping others. Your transmission, the entity said, gesturing toward the flood of human history and culture that still poured in from the Varelian array. It has awakened something long forgotten among us, something we sacrificed for knowledge. The unified voice of the Watchers spoke again, but now with a new undertone. Uncertainty. Your choice, Commander. Join us and ascend, or maintain your isolation and limitations. Reyes stood straighter, her decision clear. Humanity chooses to remain human, with all our flaws, our emotions, our capacity for both cruelty and kindness. If that means isolation, we accept it. No, the ancient entity interrupted, silencing the collective. There will be no isolation. There will be observation, but of a different kind. The chamber transformed once more, showing a new vision. The 17 civilizations not as detached observers, but as members of a galactic community. The Varelians thriving again. Humanity taking its first true steps into a wider universe. For too long, "We have watched without learning," the entity explained. "Perhaps it is time for us to learn from you." Aboard the Earth vessel, Officer Liu's communications panel suddenly came to life. Commander Reyes's voice filled the bridge. "Prepare for our return." And Liu, it worked. Your transmission worked. Within days, the Varillian world was transformed. With the combined knowledge of 17 advanced civilizations now committed to intervention rather than observation, the binary stars were stabilized. The atmosphere repaired. What would have taken humans decades was accomplished in hours. As the Earth crew prepared to return home, the Keeper approached Commander Reyes with a formal gift, a crystal containing the complete history of the Varillian people. "We will never forget that humanity alone answered our call," she said. "When we cried out for help, only humans responded." Reyes accepted the crystal with a nod. "That's how we find our way forward. By reaching out to each other." The ancient entity had promised that Earth would not return alone. Representatives from all 17 civilizations would accompany them, the beginning of a new approach to galactic community. Not based on detached observation, but on connection, on mutual aid, on the recognition that intelligence without compassion was ultimately empty. As their ship began its journey home, Dr. Paddle stood beside Reyes on the bridge, watching the stars streak past. "So what happens now?" he asked. "Everything," Reyes replied, smiling. "We taught the oldest beings in the galaxy about happiness. Imagine what else we might teach them, and what they might teach us in return." In the vastness of space, a new chapter was beginning. The great silence was over, replaced by conversation across the stars. And it had started with the simplest of human instincts, to answer when someone cries for help.